Welcome to Flame and Fate Chronicles, where every lie leaves a scar, and every betrayal writes its own revenge. Tonight's tale begins with trust shattered, a family torn apart, and a truth buried beneath $80,000 worth of deceit. This is Blood Money, the betrayal beneath our roof. I used to think betrayal came with warning signs, a shift in tone, a strange look, a subtle change in the air, something you could feel, like the calm before a storm. But nothing prepares you for the moment you realize someone you love has been building a knife behind their back, just to drive it into yours. Especially when that someone is your sister. Madeline was the golden child, always had been. Even as kids, the difference was clear. Where I was loud and stubborn, Madeline was poised and obedient. Where I questioned rules, she smiled and followed them like gospel. She could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. She was the girl with the spotless record, the sparkling grades, and the rehearsed laugh that made people melt. I was older by 2 years, but somehow I always felt smaller when she was around. She never said it aloud. She didn't have to. Madeline was the sun in every room. I was the shadow on the floor. It wasn't that I didn't love her. I did, in my own fractured way. We weren't close, not like sisters in the movies, but we were still family. We had the same dad, the same blood, the same memories of snow days and bedtime stories and road trips with cracked car windows. And for most of my life, I thought that meant something. I thought blood was thicker than pride. Turns out, I was wrong. It started with the lake house, a creaky 2-bedroom place that smelled like cedar and mosquito spray. It was our grandfather's originally, then our dad's. We spent nearly every summer of our childhood there, tubing on the lake, roasting marshmallows, listening to Dad swear under his breath while trying to light the grill. That house meant something to us. At least I thought it did. So when Dad announced last spring that he'd sold it, I was surprised, not upset, just taken aback. "I'm getting older," he told us, slicing into a roast chicken at Sunday dinner, "and that place takes more out of me than it gives back. I got a great offer. I figured it was time." Madeline nodded politely, like she always did. I stayed quiet, hiding my frown behind a sip of wine. "It's just a house," she said after a moment. "Besides, 80 grand is nothing to sneeze at." I raised my eyebrows. 80? Dad nodded. "All cash, transferred straight to savings." He said it like it was no big deal, but I knew my father. He was careful with money. That 80 grand wasn't for splurging. It was his safety net, his, in case of emergency, parachute. And maybe I was the only one who appreciated that. I should have known then that something wasn't right. The way Madeline glanced down at her phone with that quiet little smirk, the way she touched her necklace, a nervous tic she had when she was plotting something. But I dismissed it, just like I always did, because Madeline was the perfect daughter, and perfect daughters don't steal from their fathers. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. And the weeks that followed were a blur. I was busy with work, juggling clients, missing deadlines, battling insomnia like it was a full-time job. Life felt like a treadmill I couldn't get off of. I barely had time to think, let alone notice the subtle shift in my father's voice every time we spoke. Until one day, he stopped calling. I didn't panic. Not at first. Dad went through phases like that, quiet stretches where he retreated into his thoughts. But after 2 weeks with no response to my texts, I drove to his house. He opened the door slowly. His face was pale, drawn tight. His eyes, usually bright and teasing, were flat. "Hey," I said, trying to smile. "Everything okay?" He stepped aside to let me in without a word. That alone made my stomach twist. The living room was dark. A pile of unopened mail sat on the coffee table. The air felt heavy, stale, with something unspoken. "I'm gonna ask you something," Dad said, sitting down slowly. "And I want you to be honest." I nodded, sinking into the armchair across from him. "Where's the money, Ava?" I blinked. What? The money from the house. All 80,000. It's gone. My chest tightened. I leaned forward. Wait, what do you mean gone? He reached behind him, pulled a folder off the counter and dropped it on the coffee table. Gone. Withdrawn in cash. 3 separate transactions over the last 2 months. All traced back to the branch 2 blocks from your apartment. I stared at the paperwork like it was written in another language. This has to be a mistake. You think I haven't checked? His voice cracked a rare thing. My dad didn't cry, didn't get emotional, but now his hands were trembling as he shoved the printouts toward me. Madeline told him I was struggling with rent, that I'd borrowed money from friends, that I'd said I hated asking him for help again. I laughed not because it was funny, but because it was insane. I didn't touch your account. I don't even have access to it. His eyes narrowed. Then why would your name be on the ATM security footage? I couldn't speak. I had no idea what footage he was talking about. None of this made sense. Did you even ask Madeline? I asked, my voice breaking. He looked away. She's the one who told me to check. And just like that, the air went still. The ground under me shifted. My sister, the girl with the pearl earrings and the polite smile, the one who never raised her voice, she'd thrown me under the bus without blinking. And my father, the man who'd raised me, believed her. I left my father's house in a daze. I couldn't feel my fingers on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with a message I didn't check. The streets around me blurred like I was underwater, like the entire world had slipped out of focus. I didn't know what was worse, being accused of stealing $80,000 or knowing exactly who had done it and still being the one blamed. I got home, locked the door behind me, and let myself fall to the floor. For a long time, I didn't cry. I just sat there, cold, stunned, staring at nothing. I replayed everything in my mind. Madeline's comment at dinner, the transactions, the branch near my apartment, her perfect timing. It wasn't just a coincidence, it was a setup. She'd been planning this. And my father, my rock, my guide, my whole anchor in the world, had believed her. No questions, no hesitation, no benefit of the doubt, just silence. The next morning I checked my phone. 2 missed calls from Mom, 1 from my cousin Laura, a text from my dad that simply said, "Give me space. I need time to think." Space? What about me? What about the space my sister carved out of my life by lying? I didn't reply. I couldn't. I thought it would blow over, that maybe Dad would go back through the statements and realize something didn't line up, that maybe Madeline would slip up, say something, do something that would force the truth into the light. But no. Days passed, then a week, then 2. Nothing. When Sunday dinner rolled around again, I wasn't invited. It wasn't official, no one said anything directly, but the group chat was oddly quiet. My mom posted a photo of her casserole on Facebook with the caption, "Family's all here," except I wasn't. I tried calling Madeline that night. No answer. Then I sent a message. "What did you do? Why are you doing this?" She replied with a single line. "Don't drag me into your drama, Ava. Maybe take responsibility for once." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My jaw clenched so tightly I thought my teeth might crack. Take responsibility? She'd stolen Dad's entire safety net, $80,000, and pinned it on me with a smile. She got to sit at Sunday dinner while I ate stale crackers alone. And somehow I was the problem? I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall, bounced off, and landed face down. I wanted to scream, wanted to break something, wanted to undo everything. But all I could do was lie there, surrounded by silence, and feel myself fall apart. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was the doubt. The slow, creeping whisper that maybe, just maybe, I'd done something wrong. That maybe my memory had failed me. That somehow I had caused this. That voice grew louder every day I didn't hear from Dad. I stopped sleeping, stopped returning emails, stopped showing up to work on time. My boss, usually kind, pulled me aside after my third late arrival. "Ava," she said softly, "you're not here anymore. What's going on?" I opened my mouth to explain and nothing came out. Not because I didn't have the words, but because I didn't think anyone would believe them. I was tired of explaining myself, tired of defending myself against shadows. So I just smiled, said, "I'm fine," and walked away. She fired me 3 days later. That night, I sat on my couch in sweatpants, watching old home videos on my laptop. Christmas, 2003. I was 8. Madeline was 6. She wore a red velvet dress and kept pulling at the lace collar. We opened gifts under the tree. I'd gotten a bike. She'd gotten a dollhouse. She was crying because I wouldn't let her touch my helmet. I was laughing. Our dad stood in the background, filming everything, smiling, calling us his girls, his sunshine, and his moonlight. I closed the laptop. I felt like that video had been shot in another universe, a place where we weren't strangers, a place where my name wasn't soaked in suspicion. A few days later, I saw a photo of Madeline on social media. It was posted by a mutual friend, nothing fancy, a casual shot of a rooftop bar downtown. In the background, you could clearly see Madeline laughing, dressed in a designer coat. She was holding a drink. In her other hand, a Chanel shopping bag. I stared at it, zoomed in. The bag was unmistakable. Black, gold-lettered, elegant. Price tag, $6,000, minimum. My hands started shaking. This was it. This was the crack in her story. Dad's $80K hadn't vanished into thin air. It was draped over Madeline's shoulders, swinging from her wrist, embedded in her perfect Instagram aesthetic. And just like that, I felt something shift inside me. The grief stopped swirling, the fog cleared, and what was left was rage. They say betrayal is the end of a relationship, but for me, it was the beginning. I wasn't going to sit in the dark anymore. I wasn't going to let her rewrite our story while I curled up in shame. No. She wanted a villain. She wanted to see what I was capable of. Then so be it. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in weeks. Madeline had made a mistake. A Chanel bag wasn't a smoking gun, not by itself, but it was a loose thread, and I was ready to pull. I started with the obvious, social media. Madeline was never one to overshare, but she couldn't resist the occasional brag. Her grid was filled with soft life aesthetics, rose gold makeup brushes, marble countertops, expensive oat milk lattes. I scrolled for nearly an hour, paying attention to the little things she didn't think anyone would notice. A blurred background in one photo showed the logo of an upscale spa. Another showed the edge of a designer shoebox. A close-up selfie, when brightened, revealed a mirror reflection, and in that reflection, a new MacBook Pro. She wasn't just living comfortably, she was living rich, and unless her HR job had suddenly started paying CEO bonuses, something didn't add up. Still, suspicion wasn't proof. I needed more, so I drove across town to her favorite hair salon, the one she'd been going to since college. I knew they liked her there. She always tipped big and posted glowing reviews. But I had something they didn't. Dirt. Leah, one of the stylists, had once been a friend of mine, before Madeline pulled her into her orbit. We hadn't talked in months, but when I walked in and saw her at the front desk, her eyes widened with something between guilt and relief. "Ava," she said, unsure. I smiled tightly. "Hey, can we talk?" We stepped outside. It was windy and cold, but I didn't care. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo of Madeline with the Chanel bag. "You know where she got that?" Leah shifted uncomfortably. I shouldn't say anything. "She stole from our dad," I snapped. "She emptied his account, blamed me, and he believed her." Leah blinked. "She what?" "She's been spending that money like it grew on a tree. All I'm asking is, if you've seen anything suspicious." Leah hesitated, then sighed. "She's been paying in cash, like a lot of cash, hundreds, even thousands. One time she tipped me $500 for a basic trim. When I joked about it, she said her man was spoiling her. Her man? I asked. She doesn't even have a boyfriend. Leah shrugged. I thought that was weird too. That was my second clue. The first was the spending. The second was the cover story. She was already building a narrative. I checked her Venmo history next. Her transactions weren't private, a rare lapse in judgment. Most were labeled with vague emojis, hearts, champagne bottles, money bags. One recurring sender caught my attention. At Daddy Issues 22. Subtle, Mads. Real subtle. I clicked on the profile. No photo, no friends, barely used. But the timing of the payments matched the same window as Dad's withdrawals. The more I looked, the more certain I became this wasn't impulse. This was a plan. I drove to her apartment. It was a new place, high-rise, modern, way out of her usual price range. I knew the building well. I'd looked at units there 2 years ago, before realizing the rent was double what I could afford. She buzzed me in without asking. I wondered if she thought I was someone else. When the elevator opened, she was already waiting, arms crossed, fake smile in place. What do you want? She asked. I want to talk. She rolled her eyes. I'm busy. It'll take 5 minutes. She sighed, but stepped aside. Her apartment smelled like cinnamon and money, white leather furniture, a Dyson air purifier, a massive flat screen. Every corner screamed luxury, and it made my stomach twist. You've been doing well for yourself, I said, sitting on the edge of the couch. Hard work pays off. I smiled. Does Dad know he funded your success? Her smile faltered. You should leave, she said quietly. I didn't move. You blamed me, Madeline, for your crime. Do you even understand what that did to me? I lost my job. My dad won't look me in the eye. You've got half the family thinking I'm some addict with sticky fingers. I didn't force you to screw up your life, she snapped. Maybe if you weren't always the family screw-up, people wouldn't be so quick to believe it. I stood slowly, my fists clenched. You stole from Dad. She smirked. You can't prove that. I stepped forward. Want to bet? She didn't even bother to deny it. That was the most maddening part, the way she leaned into her lie, like it was a role she was born to play. You always thought you were smarter than me, she said as I reached the door. But guess what, Ava? I won. And you? You're just the sad, bitter sister who couldn't get her life together. I left before I threw something. That night I sat on my couch again, but this time I wasn't broken. I was furious, focused, ready. If Madeline wanted a war, then I'd give her one. But I wouldn't fight dirty. I'd fight smart. I didn't know how quickly a family could turn into a courtroom. But after Madeline's accusations, every phone call became cross-examination. Every silence felt like a verdict. No one outright called me a thief. They didn't have to. Their absence said it loud enough. The first sign was the Sunday dinner that never came. Our family had a tradition every second Sunday of the month. We gathered at Mom's house. Pot roast, sweet tea, carrot cake. Dad always brought board games. Madeline always brought her flawless skin and backhanded compliments. I always brought wine. But this time, no one texted. No one asked if I was coming. No one even acknowledged I existed. Instead, my mother posted a family photo online. The caption was simple. Love my tribe. Sunday tradition never dies. I stared at the picture. There was Madeline, sitting between our parents like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't detonated a bomb under our lives. Her hair was in soft curls. Her hands were folded neatly. She looked like the daughter you frame in the hallway. And my chair? Empty. I didn't cry this time. The ache wasn't sharp anymore, it was dull, constant, a chronic wound I carried under my ribs. I didn't expect apologies, but I'd hoped for questions. I wanted anyone to say, "Wait, are we sure this makes sense?" But no one did. That week, I ran into my cousin Laura at the pharmacy. She looked surprised to see me. "Oh, hey Ava." I gave a half smile. "Hey." We stood in awkward silence. "How are things?" I asked, even though I hated myself for pretending everything was normal. She scratched her arm. Good. Yeah. I saw Madeline last night. She said you've been going through a lot." I tilted my head. "Did she also tell you she robbed Dad blind?" Lara blinked like I'd slapped her. "She didn't say it like that." "Right, she wouldn't." Lara shifted uncomfortably, then muttered, "Well, people make mistakes." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound that turned a few heads. "Mistakes?" I repeated. "Mistakes are forgetting someone's birthday. This was premeditated fraud." She didn't reply, just gave me a tight smile and backed away with her little orange pharmacy bag, like I was contagious. By Friday, I'd stopped checking my phone for messages. Every ding made me flinch. Every silence felt like punishment. But what really broke me was Mom. She called around 7 p.m. that night. I almost didn't answer, but something in me still clung to hope. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her voice cautious. "Hey." Long pause. "I heard you've been upset." That was the word she used. Upset. Like I'd thrown a tantrum over the wrong coffee order. "I've been falsely accused of stealing $80,000 and exiled from my own family. So yeah, I'd say upset covers it." She sighed. "Your father's been under a lot of stress. So is Madeline. This whole thing has shaken us." "I didn't do it, Mom." Another pause. "Then why would she say you did?" That hurt more than anything else. Because that was it, wasn't it? She believed her, not me. Not the daughter who helped her clean out the attic last summer. Not the one who stayed up late making her soup when she got COVID. Not the one who knew every secret ingredient in her carrot cake. She believed Madeline. After the call, I turned off my phone. I unplugged it, tossed it in a drawer, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself feel everything. Anger, disgust, sorrow, but most of all, shame. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I'd let them make me feel like I had. I curled up in bed, clutched my knees to my chest, and let the tears come. Ugly, full-body sobs that shook me down to the bone. I cried for the trust I'd lost, for the family I no longer recognized, for the little girl who used to think home was the safest place in the world. I don't know how long I laid there, but sometime around 2 a.m., something shifted. I sat up, wiped my face, and whispered out loud like a promise. "You don't get to ruin me, Madeline." Because while my family was busy believing her lies, I'd been collecting truths, receipts, screenshots, conversations, patterns, and now I was ready to use them. The next morning, I started building my case. I opened a blank folder on my laptop and labeled it Evidence. Inside, I dropped photos of Madeline's designer bags, coats, shoes, screenshots of Venmo transactions with notes from Leah at the salon, date-stamped Instagram stories showing suspicious purchases, and my own bank statements, proving no large deposits or cash inflows. I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't a detective. But I was a woman with nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous. I cross-referenced dates, checked timestamps, noted how every time Dad's account lost thousands, Madeline gained something new. She thought she'd buried me under her lie, but I wasn't buried. I was planted, and I was ready to grow thorns. They say the devil is in the details. And my sister? She wasn't the devil, but she definitely left a trail. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted proof. The kind that would leave no room for excuses, no second guessing, no loophole Madeline could slide through with another perfect smile. So I became my own private investigator. First stop, the ATMs. Dad had shown me 3 specific withdrawals, all cash, all max limits, all pulled from the same two branches. One of them was 2 blocks from my apartment. The other? Just 6 floors below Madeline's office building downtown. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks. That made me wonder, was she arrogant? Or just so used to getting away with things that she didn't think anyone would question her? Probably both. I parked across the street from the bank and waited. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. I just wanted to feel the energy of the place. See the security cameras. Time the traffic flow. That's when I saw her, Madeline. Wearing a soft camel coat, heels too high for her 9-to-5 job, and oversized sunglasses like she was about to dodge paparazzi. She walked with the confidence of someone who knew the world owed her something. And sure enough, she walked right into the building that shared the same lobby as the ATM. I watched her leave 30 minutes later with a smoothie and a receipt in her hand. My hands clenched the steering wheel so hard it left dents in the leather. I waited until the next day to approach the bank. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to be smart. Inside, I asked for a manager, told them I was helping my elderly father track suspicious activity. To my surprise, the man behind the desk was helpful, sympathetic even. "Unfortunately, we can't show you surveillance footage unless you file a legal request," he said. "But if your dad wants to request it directly, we can verify when and where withdrawals were made." He printed a sheet of recent activity from the branch, names redacted, but times and amounts listed. The times lined up perfectly with Madeline's lunch breaks. Bingo. Next up, her social media footprint. I'd already screenshotted the Chanel bag, but now I was digging deeper. Using metadata tools, I pulled the timestamp on her Instagram post and matched it to one of the exact days Dad's account had a $10,000 withdrawal. The pieces were snapping into place. On Twitter, I found an old tweet from a friend of hers tagged at a spa resort. Madeline was in the group photo. In the comments, someone asked, "Who booked the suite?" And her friend replied, "Maddie did. She's the sugar mama this month." I saved it. Every emoji, every letter. The turning point came 2 days later. I was leaving the grocery store when I spotted Madeline's car. Sleek, silver, a brand new Audi. Curiosity pulled me in like a magnet. I circled around it, pretending to check my phone until I saw what I needed, a receipt stuck between the seat and the center console, half visible through the window. Luxury watch company, $12,000, paid in cash. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. Was it illegal to snoop? Technically. Did I care? Not even a little. That receipt, even half crumpled and sun-faded, was my golden ticket. I reached out to Leah again. This time, I asked if she had anything on record tips, bookings, anything with timestamps. She was hesitant, but after I told her what Madeline had done, she agreed to help. The next day, she emailed me a copy of their digital appointment book. Every time Madeline came in for a blowout or color refresh, it matched exactly with the ATM withdrawals. Same days, sometimes even within the same hour. "She's been dropping hundreds in cash," Leah wrote. "No credit card, no receipts, just bills." I compiled everything into a document I titled The Madeline Ledger. Inside were screenshots of Instagram posts with timestamp metadata, Twitter comments confirming she paid for group trips, Venmo receipts to Sao from a fake user account, photos of the bank branches and ATM withdrawal reports, eyewitness accounts from Leah and others, images of designer items with retail prices listed, the $12,000 luxury watch receipt from her car window, and public tax data showing Madeline's salary, $54,000 a year, nowhere near enough to cover her lifestyle. All in all, she had spent close to $75,000 over the past 3 months. I even tracked one payment to a private chef service she'd used for a birthday dinner. The chef tagged her in a story, "Client went all out tonight." She hadn't just stolen from Dad. She'd celebrated with it. That night, I printed everything. I laid the papers out on my living room floor like a crime scene, because that's what it was. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, not a miscommunication. It was theft, planned, executed, covered up, and pinned on me like I was disposable. But I wasn't disposable, and I wasn't afraid of her anymore. The only thing left was to confront the truth with the person who mattered most. Dad. I stared at my phone for a long time. We hadn't spoken in weeks, not since he told me to give him space. But now, I had a folder full of evidence and a voice full of fire. I took a deep breath, dialed his number. It rang. Once, twice. Then, hello? His voice was tired, weathered, older, somehow. Dad, it's me. Silence. I need you to meet me, I said. I need you to see something. Pause. If this is about the money, it is. But not in the way you think, please. Just 1 hour. If I'm wrong, I'll walk away forever. Silence again. Then, fine. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Joe's coffee. He hung up. I stared at the screen. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. I hadn't really slept. I just lay in bed most of the night rehearsing everything I needed to say, everything I needed to show. I was ready, or at least, I told myself I was. At 9:15, I printed one more copy of the Madeline ledger, all 78 pages, organized by category, date-stamped, and tabbed with sticky notes like a trial exhibit. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to cry. I just wanted him to see. Joe's coffee was almost empty when I arrived. Dad sat by the window in the corner, hands wrapped around a cup, eyes heavy, hair more gray than I remembered. He didn't smile when I walked in, didn't stand, just nodded toward the seat across from him. So I sat. Thank you for meeting me, I said quietly. He nodded again, sipped his coffee. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. It made a soft thud on the table. He looked at it but didn't touch it. I know what Madeline told you, I said. But this is what actually happened. Still, he didn't move. I didn't steal from you, Dad. I didn't take a cent. But someone did, and it was her. He sighed. Ava. No. I cut in gently. Don't say anything until you see. I flipped open the folder and slid over the first sheet. Her Instagram post, flaunting the Chanel bag posted the same day as a $10,000 withdrawal from his account. He looked at it, slowly, quietly. Next, I handed him the receipts. The ATM logs matching Madeline's work hours, the luxury watch slip from her car, the appointment logs from the salon, photos of the spa trip, the private chef, the designer shoes. I explained each one like a lawyer laying out a case. He didn't interrupt once. By the time I finished, his hands had started to shake. I pulled out my final piece, the Venmo screenshot. She created a fake account, pretended someone was sending her money. Look at the names, look at the emojis, look at the dates. He stared at the screen, then slowly, quietly set it down. And then? I played the audio. The one Leah recorded without even realizing how important it would become. Madeline's voice, clear as crystal. He really believed me. All I had to do was cry. Ava's too dumb to defend herself. And just like that, my father's eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in weeks. Not anger, not confusion, but heartbreak. I trusted her, he whispered. His voice cracked like glass. She knew I was worried about you, she used it. She made me doubt my own daughter. He pressed his hand over his eyes like he was ashamed to look at me. I'm so sorry, Ava. My throat closed. I didn't want to believe she'd do this, he murmured. But she played me. I nodded, swallowing the lump that had been living in my chest for weeks. I know. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in what felt like forever. And in his eyes, I saw the father I'd missed. Not the man clouded by lies, but the man who raised me. We sat in silence for a long time. Eventually, I pushed the folder toward him. Take it, I said. Do whatever you want with it. I just wanted you to know the truth. He nodded, I believe you. And for the first time in weeks, the weight on my chest started to lift. Later that night, he called, said he wanted to handle things properly. I didn't ask what he meant, I just let him speak. I've scheduled a family meeting, Saturday, at your mother's house. Everyone will be there, including Madeline. I paused. You sure? His voice was firm. Yes, she needs to answer for this. That Saturday felt like walking into a battlefield. Mom opened the door, visibly tense. She hugged me, but it was stiff, unsure. Like she still wasn't ready to believe the person she'd loved had done something so ugly. The dining room was eerily clean. The table was set for 5. Madeline arrived last. Of course, she wore white silk, flowing, dramatic, like some kind of saint about to testify before God. Her heels clicked across the floor as she sat opposite me without even glancing in my direction. Dad cleared his throat. I've called you all here because there's been a serious mistake, he began, glancing at Madeline. And it's time we stop pretending it didn't happen. She crossed her arms. Dad, what's this about? He opened my folder, and laid it on the table. I know what you did. Her expression didn't change. I have no idea what you're talking about. I trusted you, he said, his voice shaking. I believed you when you said Ava stole from me. I defended you, and the whole time, you were the one draining my account. That's not true, she snapped, but her voice wavered. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair too tightly. Ava faked that stuff. She's trying to make me look bad. She's always been jealous of me. I didn't move, didn't blink. Dad slid the audio transcript across the table. The color drained from her face. What's this? Mom asked softly. A recording, Dad replied. From Leah, of Madeline laughing about the scam, admitting it. Mom reached for the transcript with trembling fingers. Madeline stood abruptly. You're all insane. This is a witch hunt. No, I said quietly. It's justice. She turned on me, eyes wild. You think you're so smart? You think you're the victim here? You're nothing but a sad, bitter mess with a guilt complex and a martyr complex. Dad stood. Enough. His voice echoed through the room. Madeline froze. You're not welcome in this house anymore, he said. Not until you pay back every cent. She stared at him like he'd slapped her. You're choosing her over me? He didn't flinch. I'm choosing the truth. She scoffed, grabbed her bag, and stormed out. The door slammed behind her hard enough to rattle the china. A picture frame fell from the wall and shattered. It was a photo of us as kids. Of course it was. The silence after the storm is never truly quiet. It's thick, pressed, like the walls are still holding their breath. After Madeline slammed the door, no one moved for a long time. Not even my mother. We just stood there, surrounded by the echoes of her lies and the shrapnel of shattered trust. Eventually, Dad bent down to pick up the picture frame. The glass had cracked clean through the center, slicing right between the two of us. In the photo, I was 9, Madeline was 7, and we were holding hands on the dock by the lake house. We looked so innocent, so unaware. I used to think this was my favorite photo, he said quietly. I watched him gently place it face down on the sideboard. I'm sorry, he said again, turning toward me. No words can make up for what I accused you of. I let her twist everything. I let you carry her crime. Tears stung the backs of my eyes. I shook my head. You didn't want to believe she could do something like this? I get it. I should have believed you. Mom finally spoke. We both should have. I looked at her, expecting excuses, softness toward Madeline, maybe a plea to forgive and forget. But her face was pale, stunned. Her hands trembled. She lied to me too, she whispered. I asked her point blank. She swore on everything. She didn't just lie, I said. She weaponized your trust. In the days that followed, the house felt different. Empty, despite still being full. My mom barely spoke. She went through old documents, letters, even Madeline's childhood drawings, like she was trying to reconcile the daughter she thought she raised with the stranger who walked out that door. Dad changed the passwords on all his accounts. He visited the bank, reported the theft formally, told them he'd been manipulated into believing I was responsible, and gave them the audio evidence. They flagged Madeline's name, started their own investigation. No one pressed charges, not yet, but Dad made it clear she wasn't coming back into his life without answers, without repayment. Madeline, for her part, vanished. She moved out of her apartment, deleted her social media. Word got around that she'd left the city, headed to Arizona, of all places. Rumor was she took a temp job doing marketing for a real estate firm. No one heard from her directly. No calls, no apologies, just absence. The kind that felt more like abandonment than escape. As for me, it took time to feel normal again. Even with the truth exposed, I still carried the bruises, the friendships that cooled, the relatives who never reached out to ask if the rumors were true, the coworkers who had started whispering behind my back before I lost my job. It all stuck to me like ash, but I did what I always do. I rebuilt. Dad invited me over for coffee every Thursday. We didn't always talk about what happened. Sometimes we just sat on the porch, listening to birds or arguing over the best kind of pie crust. It was quiet, honest, healing. Mom started sending me weekly letters handwritten. She said writing helped her process things in a way speaking never could. I kept them all in a box under my bed. Each one ended with the same 3 words: I see you. And little by little, I began to see myself again too. I updated my resume, applied for jobs that scared me, took a part-time gig at a nonprofit that helped elderly victims of financial abuse. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it felt right, like I could turn the worst thing that ever happened to me into something meaningful. Like maybe someone out there could avoid the damage I couldn't. One afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address, no name, just my first name on the envelope, in handwriting I knew too well. Inside, a single sheet. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted to prove I could win for once. I never thought you'd fight back. I guess I forgot who you really are. I read it once, then again. Then I burned it. Because redemption doesn't start with a half-hearted apology scrawled in guilt. And I wasn't going to be anyone's afterthought. People often ask if I forgave her, and I always answer honestly, no. But I released her. I stopped letting her take up space in my head, my heart, my narrative. She could be whatever she needed to be now, a runaway, a thief, a ghost. But me? I was still here, still standing, still whole. Sometimes I wonder if she ever looks back, if Madeline lies awake in some unfamiliar apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that happened, if she feels guilt or just the sting of losing. But then I stop myself, because wondering what she feels doesn't help me heal. And this story? It was never really about her. It's about me. After everything fell apart, after the accusations, the betrayal, the silence, the fallout, I had to relearn who I was without the weight of her. Because for so long, I measured myself in comparison to Madeline. She was the benchmark, the favorite, the perfect one, and I was always the shadow she stepped over. But when the mask cracked, when her lies came into the light, something strange happened. I didn't feel triumph. I felt grief. Not just for the sister I lost, but for the version of me that spent years shrinking to keep the peace. That girl deserved better. So I gave her better. I started with small things, cooking again, opening the windows, letting sunlight touch parts of my apartment that had sat in darkness for months. Then I started journaling, not just about Madeline, but about me. My fears, my dreams, the way it felt to have people doubt me, the way it felt to stand up anyway. Some days I wrote letters to my younger self. Some days I wrote letters to my father. Some days I wrote letters to her, the sister I wished I had. I never sent them. I didn't need to. They were for me. The job at the nonprofit became more than a distraction. It became a calling. I worked with people who'd been manipulated by their own children, their spouses, even caregivers. People who handed over everything they had out of love and were left with nothing but debt and betrayal. I listened. I held hands. I filed paperwork. I told them they weren't alone. Because I wasn't either. Their stories reminded me that pain doesn't discriminate, that betrayal wears many faces, and that sometimes the people who hurt you the most live under your roof. But I also saw resilience. Every day. The kind you can't fake. The kind that grows in silence and breaks through like wildflowers in concrete. A year passed. Then another. Madeline stayed gone. We heard she changed her last name, tried to start over in another state. There were whispers she got engaged to someone older, wealthier, a tech guy maybe, someone who didn't know her past. I never reached out. She never tried to make amends. And maybe that's for the best, because not every story ends with reconciliation. Some end with release. My father, for all his flaws, became my closest confidant. He gave me back more than just trust. He gave me support. When I told him I wanted to buy a small fixer-upper home near the lake, not the lake house, but one close by, he helped me find a mortgage lender. He showed up every weekend with paint supplies and duct tape and terrible dad jokes. We laughed again, real laughter, the kind that makes your chest ache in a good way. My mom joined a local support group for families estranged from adult children. I think she needed a space where she wasn't just the mother of the golden child. She needed to mourn, too. Her grief was quiet, complicated, but little by little, we stitched ourselves back together, not like before, but better, more honest, more aware. Sometimes, life doesn't give you the justice you want. You don't get grand apologies. You don't get dramatic courtroom confessions. You don't get the money back, or the time, or the innocence you lost. But what you do get if you fight for it is clarity. And for me, that was priceless. It's funny, isn't it? Madeline stole $80,000. A number, a figure, a pile of bills she burned through on spa days and handbags. But in the process, she gave me something far more valuable. Myself. Unfiltered, unburdened, unapologetic. The last photo I have of us as sisters is from my college graduation. I'm smiling. She's smiling. Our arms around each other like nothing could break us. Now, when I look at it, I don't feel pain. I feel perspective. Because I know better now. Some people don't wear masks. They are the mask. And that's okay. I'm not here to rip hers off anymore. I'm too busy building a life she no longer gets to touch. They say blood is thicker than water, but even blood can turn cold. Tonight's story reminds us. Sometimes the deepest betrayal isn't from strangers, it's from the people who know exactly where to cut. This has been Blood Money, the betrayal beneath our roof. Only on Flame and Fate Chronicles, where every scar has a story and every story has its reckoning.